My question is, we speak here about menu for change. What does it mean for you?
Well, I was really pleased to be able to participate in this Menu for Change um, because it gave me an opportunity to bring together a few different areas of my work with the sustainability research and teaching that I'm involved in ideas about alternative development and new directions for sustainable development, and also thinking about ecological impact and what we can do about the narrowing space that we have on our planet, the safe operating space for humanity. So it allows me to do that through this very accessible and easy to understand idea of food, but connecting these different complex concerns into a single set of questions and relationships around the food system.
We know that climate change is influencing very much the way how the agriculture works. Uh, what does the world need to uh, get agriculture better in these circumstances?
Yes, the world is now facing critical challenges in a number of different areas which define the safe operating space for humanity. So agriculture is a key area where we can and we need to maybe change our practices, the way we produce and the way we consume and relate to each other through agriculture in order to stay within the safe zone of climate stability. Following the Paris agreements recently, we have multinational or international commitments to contain and reduce the level of carbon emissions and other greenhouse gas emissions like methane. But also we can use agriculture as a way of accessing some of the other key challenges around pollution, not just relating to greenhouse gas and climate change, but also chemical pollution and securing the food supply in a way that can still develop the economy in a more inclusive way.
You teach about right to food. What does it mean?
Okay, so the right to food is considered one of the first immediate action areas for applied economic, social, and cultural rights. So this means that it's one of the first areas of attention we should think when we want to think about human rights becoming real and becoming real through people's economic circumstances, and what sort of policies and programs need to be there to secure their rights and to make sure that they have the rights that they are entitled to. So the right to food is a very basic and fundamental right that people can easily understand.
So, how is it influenced by climate change?
The right to food is influenced by climate change because climate change affects, first of all, the availability of food, how much food and what types of food can be grown by what kinds of people. But of course, it also influences the accessibility of food because just because food is there doesn't mean that people can physically or economically access that food. So the climate change hugely affects these first two criteria that we use in the rights-based approach. It also affects the area of whether food is adequate or not, because it affects the kinds of foods that can be grown and who can access those kinds of healthy and nutritious foods. So the right to food gives us a framework for thinking about food that puts adequate nutrition at the center of our right and takes away the interest only in producing the food and looking at why people need the food and why it is their right. It is really food that is adequate for their health and how they can access such food in a sustainable way. So that's the fourth criterion for a rights-based approach to food, is looking at the sustainability of production.
FAO report says that many more people can be endangered by climate change in 2050, if we do not change our agricultural practices. What does it mean? What kind of change does the world need?
That's a really important question. The world needs a fundamental transformation now away from thinking about only agricultural production towards having a sustainable food system that ensures that everybody has an adequate supply of food and accessibility of that food that is produced in a sustainable way. So climate change will affect this, and the new FAO World Food Report, Food Agriculture and Food Security Report 2016, brings climate change into clear focus together with agricultural production and food security, to think about the whole problem of the food system together in order to bring proposals to transform our food system in the way that we can stay within the safe planetary operating space for humanity, which will control our too many emissions to the climate, which are causing climate instability and affecting our ability to produce food, but also some of the other major threats to the environment, such as pollution that is coming from agriculture, polluting our water systems, nitrogen and phosphorus, but also chemical pollution in terms of persistent organic pollutants, which are highly toxic, and also increasing concern around glyphosate and pesticide pollution, which may have a long-term impact on biodiversity. Biodiversity loss, in fact, being one of the key problems facing the planet today. So if we lose key elements of our biodiversity, we are very worried about bees and pollinators at the moment, because they are dying in too large numbers, and we are afraid that if these particular species die out, they will not be able to provide the essential ecosystem services that we rely on to produce our fruit and our vegetables, a very important part of our food.
And what can we do? What could be our personal change of menu in Western countries, in developed countries?
That's the most important question. What can we do? What sort of things could we do to change? And I think some of these proposals are contained in the FAO report to respond to these multiple challenges of dealing with climate change, addressing the problem of hunger and poverty, but also thinking about how we can maintain a reasonable economy. So this would really be about supporting agriculture that is more intensive in knowledge and labor, and less intensive in carbon emissions and chemicals. So more local food, local producers, small-scale producers, and shortening the chain of processing, transport and packaging that goes into our food. So eating locally is a really useful thing for consumers, and restoring consumers' relationship to the producers that will guarantee farmers reasonable livelihoods and protect and promote the fundamental natural elements, environmental elements they need to sustain their livelihoods, such as healthy soil, biodiversity, and the climate stability.